First of all, thank you so much for coming to this talk. I've met a few of you throughout the last day or yesterday, and it's been really lovely to speak to so many people who are interested in mindfulness for young people, which is what we're going to talk about for the next half an hour. My name is Anna Villa. I have been teaching mindfulness now for about 3 or 4 years, and I have had the pleasure of teaching 2,332 children. I keep a tally. It makes me feel good. But it's been a really wonderful journey. And I'm also a mother of 3 children. I've got a 16-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. And I wish I had known this 13 years ago, but I'm still using it at home. So just before we start properly, quick show of hands. Who is here because they have children? And who's here because they teach children? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And who here has a mindfulness practice before they turned up to the show? Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to try as much as possible to cover quite a lot of information and also sneak in a few meditations, which we could start with right now because I've been standing out there with you and it's quite a lot of people going on. So if you'd like to sit strong, whatever that feels like for you, it might involve your feet being flat on the floor. It might involve a tall spine, which we know awakens the prefrontal cortex. It might involve your hands on your thighs, facing down, or if you are in a mood to receive some sort of energy from this fabulous show, you might want to put your hands facing up. Whatever feels right for you. And just allow your eyelids to flutter down. Although you are in a room mainly of strangers, you know that it is a safe place and that the universe has your back, to quote someone else. And just allow your breathing to breathe itself. It's quite magic. With very little effort, we breathe in the air from the room around us. Sometimes we notice the pause, and quite magically it breathes itself out, taking with it things that we no longer need. With this breath, we can come to this moment. We can nourish our bodies. And as we breathe out, we can let go. Perhaps our mind has started doing what it's built to do. It started thinking, telling you how many more stalls you've got to go to, processing the stalls you've been to. Fabulous work. But with this breath, invite all that thinking to just take a step back. It'll come back when you need it. Notice the sensations in your body. If you find anything tight or heavy, take a breath in and send it with loving kindness to that place without expectation. Merely curious to see what happens when your breath finds your body. And just be. And then when it feels right for you, invite your eyelids to flutter open, to take in the not so colourful room around us, but grey works too. I'm a big fan of grey at home. Thank you. You will have no doubt done something very similar to that before, but it's that easy and the children absolutely love it. As I said, I've taught over 2,000 children. And on the first lesson, we start with 60 seconds. By the 5th lesson, every single child I've taught can sit still for 9 minutes. So if your child tells you they can't, they haven't tried it yet. I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end. And I've got a few slides to go through. If I zip through, don't feel that you're missing out on something. It's just that I've perhaps already covered it, and I can always email it to you afterwards if you give me your email. So I'm going to try and look at why teens do what they do. Do I have any neuroscientists in the room? Phew. I'm going to look at some thoughts as what it's like to be a teenager now, very different from when I grew up in the 80s. Look at what we as parents bring to the scenario. We're not baggage free, however much mindfulness you do. Look at how mindfulness can help. I'm pretty sure everybody in this room is convinced that it does help, but just remind us of how it specifically helps teenagers. And then look at some practical strategies for families. Hopefully that's what you were expecting. So why do teenagers do what they do? Because they are wired to. You've possibly heard that before, but they are actually neurologically wired to take risks. To, in my case, my 16-year-old daughter, to climb over the back garden room and go into town at 1 o'clock in the morning. Why not? At 15, fantastic, seemed like a good idea at the time. Scared me shitless, she thought it was okay. But they are actually wired to start breaking these boundaries. Their sole aim in life is to interface with their own age group. They've been in the safety of the family home, which they've needed until they're about 13, 14, 15. Now they need to create a new tribe. And they can only do that by trial and error. Teenagers and possibly grown-ups are incentivized by rewards, so they will do whatever gives them a buzz, whatever gives them maybe money, maybe a high, maybe a couple more likes on Instagram. Later on, I'll tell you what they're really looking for, but they like the feeling that comes with these rewards that they sometimes find. And their main aim, and I love teaching year 11 when I tell them this, or I ask them, is to socialize as much as possible, to party as much as possible, to meet as many human beings as possible so that they can come across that one human being with which they will have babies and ensure the survival of our race. That is their job. It was our job. Some funny looks in the audience. You get a lot of funny looks when you tell year 11 people that. That's what they're actually wired to do. They've been wired to do that for millions of years. We were wired the same way. We've just chosen to forget it because it's easier. And at the same time, science is playing a bit of a game with us all here because we know that the human brain starts its final stage of development at about the age of 13. And it starts at the back and at the bottom. And it works its way up, finally getting to the front, which is the prefrontal cortex, which is how you make good choices. Does anybody know at what age our female brain matures? Out of curiosity. There is a difference. I'm not being sexist. There is a difference. So a female brain matures at about 21, 22 years old. The male brain takes till about 24, 25. So all this time that they... So, yes. And in the meantime, we are giving them GCSEs, A-levels, possibly further education, maybe moving home, God knows, all sorts of stuff that they have to cope with. But at the same time as they are wired to take risks, their brain is still not fully functioning in knowing when to stop taking risks, when to make good choices. So the brain can still forget daft actions and repeat them because the hippocampus hasn't fully developed. The brain can still think that they are the center of the universe and not bother to empathize with other people because the insula is still not fully developed. And they can find it hard to concentrate because the prefrontal cortex is the last bit to fully develop between the age of 21 and 25. So it's not an easy ride. And of course, they make some funny choices. Now, what I don't want to do is give an idea that being a teenager is really, really difficult and we can't help them, because there's a difference between making daft choices and being reckless. Yeah? So we can sit with the difficulty of raising children who are making some peculiar choices, but without allowing that to catastrophize, to build into a sense that it's all going to end up really badly because they're being reckless. There's a huge gap in between. So hopefully what I'm trying to show here is that we can sit with knowing how the brain is wired and breathe again, and not worry that it's all going to end badly. Teenagers also do what they do. As mentioned, my daughter has climbed over the back roof, borrowing money that wasn't theirs, perhaps not eating as much as they should, perhaps looking for sensations through self-harm. All those things that children do is because they have a chemical change. Dopamine is one of the most important chemicals that we have in our bodies, and it's there to create, to allow neurons to fire off, and when they're wired together, we have new knowledge. But there's a change that happens. In the teenage years, dopamine increases, so there's excitation increases, and the serotonin, which is what controls risk, doesn't increase. So until the teenage years, they've kind of grown together, and then there's a massive gap. So there's a lot more dopamine going on in the body, which means that teenagers are not just neurologically, but chemically looking for high risk with not as good judgment functionality. Add to that a bit of testosterone and estrogen, and it's not really the best place to be for making good choices. So I keep coming to this thought in my mind that if we can accept that that's how teenagers are and how we were, then that might be half the way to understanding what's going on. Just accept that there's some neurological stuff going on, there's some chemical stuff going on, and that's what we have to work with, and not worry about it because we've all survived it. Add to that the fact that we know today is very different from growing up, for example, as I did, trying to do the math now, 30 years ago. You might get offended by that first line, but we have gone through a phase perhaps of over-promising things to our children. You can be anything, you can be anyone, which is fine, but you need to substantiate that with a bit of hard work, a bit of patience, trial and error, and not tomorrow. Yeah? So we have to be really careful what sorts of messages we give our children. I'm a teacher myself. I was a Key Stage 2 teacher, and I'm guilty of having said, you can be anyone, you can do anything you want to. Yeah? But we just really need to be careful that we put in a clause that says it's not just like licking your fingers and wishing it to be so. And we also have a habit or a tradition of rewarding children for participation. And it was quite funny, last summer I was with my children in the Algarve. I'm half Portuguese, and we were sitting there around the dinner table, and we were reflecting on the week that we'd had. And the family we were with, the father said, he was giving out awards for the person who did the best jump off the cliff, the best pedaloing, the best swim out to the floaty. And then somebody, I can't remember who, it got an award that wasn't as spectacular as the other awards. And my son said, oh, that's just the participation award. Nobody wants that one. That doesn't count. So giving medals and awards willy-nilly for not coming first, second, or third because we're so scared of breeding competition, they see through that. Nobody wants the participation award. And if you think back to your first job, you don't get an award for just showing up on the first day. So we need to be careful what sorts of messages we're giving our children. Technology. I have finally got to the point where I have banned an iPhone from my 11-year-old. Her 13-year-old brother has one. Her 16-year-old sister has one. She's not getting one. As long as there's breath in my chest, she's not getting an iPhone. Because we can now have so much proof, and the proof is growing monthly, that the dopamine released through getting likes on iPads, on Instagram, on Snapchat, Facebook is a thing of the past for the young of today, releases dopamine exactly the same way cocaine does. These devices are highly addictive. Doesn't mean that we don't need them in society, but we need some really good strategies as to how to manage them. I was teaching a year 9 class a couple of years ago, working with a young girl who suffered from anxiety if her mother asked her to put the phone outside her bedroom. And it took me 10 weeks to get her to get it just at the end of her hand, outside her hand's reach, away from her bed, closer to her bedroom door, and finally, by the end of the 10 weeks, outside the bedroom door. Couldn't get it further than that. So they're not deadly if we have some good strategies in place for working with them. But just being really conscious of the fact that this technology is addictive, and that the more people use it, the less able they are to control their addiction. And it also provides children with an opportunity to create this amazing image. Look at my life, I'm so fantastic. And you can touch the photos up. There's some amazing apps out there where you can make yourself look even more beautiful than you are at 13, if that's possible. And we get to work behind an image, when sometimes maybe we're feeling really crap at home. We're not the best student in the class. We wish our bottom was that tiny bit smaller. Or we've just had a friendship that's not working. But we don't show that on Snapchat. We create this ability to hide what's really going on. And that means that we're not making human interactions. You know, our children are hiding behind an image rather than saying, do you know what? I feel really shit about this friendship. Come on, can we make up? Can we talk about it? They're just pretending it never happened. Because these devices are making it possible. Our children are also adding to that work, living in an environment where we are nurturing impatience. I remember looking forward to the next Friends episode in a week's time. I have never, ever box binged. I don't even watch TV. But now you can watch as much as you like when you like. You can pretend you've put your laptop away, hidden it under the bed, and then as soon as mum's asleep, you can pull it out and watch another couple of hours of your favorite program. You don't need to wait for anything. I'm guilty of using Amazon Prime. If I want something tomorrow, I can get it. And this is the world that our teenagers are growing up in. Again, it's not to catastrophize. It's not a bad world. We just need to be aware of it. And then we're looking at short-term targets. Like I said, I've been a teacher myself, and we're constantly evaluating them. Every 6 weeks, every child in this country from the age of 7 to 11 gets tested. And they're not learning while they're being tested. And we're looking at what we can achieve in the next 6 weeks. We're not looking at what we can achieve in the next 6 years. So this is kind of what teenagers are going through. I have borrowed this information from a fantastic speaker called Simon Sinek. Has anybody watched his stuff on here? Really, really passionate, and from Wimbledon, which is where I'm from, about just saying to teenagers, look, you've been dealt a rough hand. Once you say that once to your teenager, they will repeat it back to you as much as they can, so be wary. But, it's nobody's fault. We're just doing the best we can with the skills we have at any given point. But it's just good to know that this is what world looks like if you are a teenager today. Not scary, just different. What does that result in? Perhaps a lack of social skills. Not everybody, but perhaps through too much screen time you haven't developed your social skills. Maybe you haven't spent enough time looking at coping strategies, talking to people about how you can deal with situations. Instead, you're cooped up in your bedroom by yourself, trying to deal with it by yourself by posting another selfie. Maybe you've got low self-esteem because not enough people are liking you compared to somebody else in your classroom. And that can all lead to higher levels of depression and, as we know, highest levels of suicide ever. So this is why I get out of bed every morning to teach mindfulness to 7 to 16-year-olds, because we can actually prevent this. We need to be aware of it, and we can actually prevent it. Again, another person who's got lots of fabulous empirical evidence out there with a bit more sense of humor is Ruby Wax. I don't know if any of you have read her books. Fabulous, following her on Insta and on Facebook. She's got some really good work there and some good proof that we need to do something about this now. The next slide comes from the Mindfulness in Schools .B course that I teach. And what it shows here is that whereas 30 years ago depression was set in at about 30, the early onset of depression is now at 13. So we need to be teaching our children before they're 13 these coping strategies so that they don't become a statistic. Yeah? That's the world of teenagers. How about ourselves? What are we bringing to all this? We're all so wired to do the things that we do. Some of the stuff that I've shared with you today, I've had the pleasure of meeting Andrew Curran, you might know, a pediatric neurologist. Lots of good stuff. He's got some really good books out there as well. But we too are wired to do what we do. There are different phases. One part of our brain stops developing at the age of 25. We then have another surge at around 40. When we start wanting to do other things as well. So it doesn't stop at 25, it keeps going. We're wired to protect our species from the next cave. We want to make sure that our children get into that footy club, that they get into the school we want them to get into, that they get GCSE grades. So we're wired to push, to strive, to get that square child into a round hole. And we just need to be wary of that. We might be scared. We might have our amygdala woken up because we're worried that they get hurt, that they'll make the mistakes maybe that we did. And we might be, then, the minute our amygdala is woken up, we know that we'll be parenting from a place of fear, and we'll either fight the situation that we're dealing with in our house, or we'll run away from it. We'll ignore what's going on at home, or we'll open the fridge and open a bottle of wine, whichever your coping strategy is. So we just need to be aware. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. We just need to be aware. Oops, my amygdala's woken up. I'm a bit worried about what's going on with my teenager. We might be resisting letting go. My youngest child goes to secondary school in September. I'm anticipating a bit of extended meditation around that time. But I'm preparing for it now. A body scan a day will keep the attachment away. We just need to know ourselves. Maybe it's to do with how we were parented. I've also been privileged to join a group called the Parent Gym that offer free parenting schools in underprivileged free parenting courses in underprivileged schools. And one of the exercises we do is just recognizing where were you parented in terms of liberal or controlling, and what do you do? And there's a few light bulb moments that go on in the room when you realize you're either completely copying your parents or doing the opposite. Both of those things are okay. We just need to be aware. And then finally, maybe we're bringing some judgment to our children. Oh, why the floor? Why not use the hangers? I bought some hangers. What's wrong with the floor? Yeah. Maybe we could be like, this species chooses to use the floor for its clothes. Now, this is interesting. Taken David Attenborough. The laundry basket's over there, but they like to keep it in this space instead. We can really have fun being parents. And do we always trust that the universe has our children's back? I'm not sure. Might be safer to be worried than to actually trust that it's all going to turn out okay. So we bring stuff to the arena. How can mindfulness help? I'm sure that most of you have seen these things before, the 7 pillars of mindfulness. If we can apply them to parenting, then maybe we could sleep better at night. If we can just not judge our children for making different choices to the ones that we made. Don't strive to get them to be the best, the fastest, the most popular. Have patience. They will get around to it eventually. They will find the dishwasher. They will find the revision books. They will learn the social skills if we can just relax a little bit and watch it happen. Can we accept that they have different likes to us? They like being on a device that makes them communicate with helps them communicate with their friends. And there are advantages to it as well. If your friends are on holiday somewhere and you can't be with them, the device is actually a really good thing right now because you can still communicate. And you don't have to be attached to this cable to attach to a plastic thing on your mother's bedside table, the way we could communicate with our friends. Can we let go? Can we let that umbilical just go a little bit further, bit by bit, so that they can develop those social skills that they need to survive? Can we be grateful for every single moment that we have with them? Because it is a gift. And can we be compassionate to them? They are going through that scenario that I painted earlier on. They are going through a very different world to the one that we went through. So can we just have a bit of compassion for them and say, it must be really tough growing up nowadays. Tell me about it. What does it feel like? Breathing the mindfulness pillars that we know, living them as parents, might make life easier for everybody. How my teens that I've taught, not my children, but the teens that I've taught, have told me mindfulness has helped them. So when I teach year 7 to year 13, so 11 to 18-year-olds, at the end of each program, they fill in a nice evaluation for me. We like qualitative and quantitative proof. The government wants proof that this stuff works. I give it to them. They tell me they feel calmer. They feel more positive. One of the most heart-wrenching moments I had is at the beginning of each .B that I teach, I ask the teenagers to fill in a post-it note. What would you like to do differently? And what worries you? And on more than one occasion, I've had that post-it note come back to me, which I share with absolutely everybody. They know it's going to be anonymous. I think people are only nice to me because they pity me, but they don't actually like me. And it breaks my heart to hear a 13, 14-year-old say that. And by the end of the course, if they can say that they feel more positive about themselves, that they trust that people actually like them, they're not just saying so, then that's a job done. They've told me that it helps them cope with stress and anxiety. They haven't said the bit about the cortisol, that's me. But we know that mindfulness reduces cortisol. They found it better or easier to improve their concentration. They work so hard. We are in the middle of GCSEs and A-levels right now. And it's just trying to get that mind to stop thinking about Topshop, about the summer holiday, about the boyfriend, and back to that really boring biology book. They get on better with other people. They're finding their tribe. They're going to be people in their tribe they really don't like, but they're too polite to say so or to break away. So they can live with those relationships. They can sleep so much better. When I do body scans with 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, half of them fall asleep because they are exhausted. They're up till 1 o'clock in the morning on their devices, back up at 6:30, going to preschool clubs or just up because they're buzzing or got long commutes into school. They're exhausted. They have increased resilience. I've worked with children with leukemia, children whose parents have died, and they're going through some stuff. But we know that they'll get back up, and the mindfulness does help them. Essentially, we're trying to bring them happiness, joy, and peace, but I think it's a way to get there. It's got to have patience. Practical strategies for you. As parents, get in a place where you can parent from a place of love, not fear. Work with you first. And then appeal to their limbic brain. We know, again, this is really helpful stuff from Andrew Curran, that if we can make them feel understood, they will trust us. They will feel self-confident. And if they're feeling self-confident, they can learn or notice the daft decisions they've made. do an MBSR. It's 8 weeks. 2 hours a week. If you haven't already done one, do an MBSR and MBCT, and learn to become aware of your own state. Make a point of practicing for 10 minutes a day. Attach it to a habit you've already got. It takes 21 days for a human being to have a new habit. So just do it. Be a positive role model. Go on retreats. I would say that because I run them, so come and see me. It's stall 25. But give yourself some time to be you, to remember who you were before you had the kids, before you started teaching them. And look after yourself first. Nothing is permanent. There's been some pretty tough times in my household for the last 3 years. And I just now can say to myself, things move on. You might feel that it's never going to get easier. It does get easier. And if we can just remind ourselves, everything changes. As a family, crucial, eat together, talk together, listen to them, encourage them to build social skills around the dinner table with you, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's a fantastic opportunity for them to use their mouths and not their thumbs. Discuss things. It'll feel a bit nerdy. My kids are always like, oh, she's off again, gratitude, what went well? Doesn't matter. Ask it again every single day. Don't give up. What went well? What are you grateful for? What is your intention for today? Start with you. Go walking. We know, in barefoot if you can, that walking makes you happy. And reward them. Now, there's only one reward they want. They don't want money. They don't want Topshop vouchers. They don't want to go to the latest footy game. They want your attention. So just give them some love bombing. And have fun. Giggle. Jump up and down on the bed. Get on the trampoline with them. Splash in the waves. Go on a pedalo. Just have some fun. Teenagers can do all sorts of things. There's the .B course that I teach. There are other options out there as well. Get them to do something creative. Get them to cook. Get them to draw. Just leave the stuff out. They'll use it. They'll go, oh, yeah, I remember this from when I was little. Get them to dance. Allow them to have loud music going on. You start by dancing around the kitchen. They will go, oh, God, you're so embarrassing. Do it anyway. Be the role model. And let them sleep till 1 o'clock if need be. They have to sleep. It is tantamount to torture to ask a child to get up before 10 a.m. Headmaster of my kids' school says it. He's trying to figure out how to not do the most important stuff before 10 a.m. There's proof that they need to sleep. And get them outdoors, whatever they want to do, just outside, fresh air, whether it's wet or sunny. Get them to talk to you, to hug you. Grandparents are a great one because they love grandparents or animals. Get them to just touch human beings. This is the .B way it's presented to children. It's presented as possibilities for teenagers, not as you must do this, but this is what it opens up for you. And on the .B course, we cover 9 different topics. 40 minutes a week for 10 weeks. They have a bit of homework. They get some audios they can do by themselves. If your school doesn't already do this, hound your headmaster so that they offer this to your children. Hound your head of pastoral, whoever it is, your Senko. Get them to offer it. And then start by just realizing that as long as your child has their breath in their chest, they are okay. They will be okay. Okay. That's all I wanted to share with you, really. I hope it's been useful. Do you have any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
To do a presentation to the parents first?
Yes, so I always start with that beforehand. So my particular offering, and I'm self-employed, I've been trained by the MISP to run .B, but I always go in and do an inset with the teachers so they know what on earth's going on. And I offer a free presentation in the evening to the parents so that they can understand and have a shared vocab. I then also offer the same course to parents, but I call it mindful parenting. They have no idea they're doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. It's very crucial to have the teachers and the child and the parent all working together. Yeah.
I love the idea of all of this, but I find it hard to put into practice when my 12-year-old daughter is really irritating me. Have you got any tips?
Practice a bit more. It's the reacting, it's rather responding, but also it's okay to be irritated by your daughter. We can't change them, we can't mold them. You can just say to yourself, what she's doing is irritating me. Today, we're not working smoothly. And if you can not shout back, because we've got mirror neurons, if we shout, they're going to shout. If we slam a door, they're going to slam a door. So it is hard. I get up 10, 20 minutes before my kids, which I it's taken me a while to get used to that. So I get up at 6, do a bit of meditation, just 10 minutes, bit of yoga stretching, and then they come down. And I'm like, yeah, go on then, give it to me. But it's okay not to get on with your children. I have run out of time, but I'm literally just outside the door here. One thing I forgot to mention is I was asked to develop these cards. Some of you have already very kindly bought them. Mindfulness Shuffle, I was asked to write them so that mindfulness can get into the classroom, it can get into the dinner table at home. Come along to stall 25. Thank you so much for listening. And I can send you the slides if you want. Okay.